In this episode of The Deep Dive, I speak with Dr. Anya Waite, Dalhousie's Associate Vice President for Research on Oceans and the Scientific Director and CEO of our Ocean Frontier Institute. As you will hear, what she and her colleagues at partner universities aim to reveal will very likely compel Canada and governments around the world to recalibrate their climate goals in significant ways. Please join me in welcoming my next guest, Dr. Anya Waite. Anya, welcome to The Deep Dive. It is so nice to have you here with us today. You and your amazing team are working at the intersection, at the interaction, I may say, of the climate and the ocean. And now it is the subject of a Canada First Research Excellence Fund application that you're putting together. Tell me more about this research and why it is so imperative.
Yeah, thanks, Deep, and thanks for inviting me. It's great to talk to you today. What we've discovered is that when we talk to policymakers about climate and about our goals to keep the world below, let's say, 1.5 degrees warming, policymakers are not aware that, in fact, the ocean is doing almost all the work to keep the world cool. So the ocean has already absorbed 90% of the heat that humans have produced, and 40% of the fossil fuel emissions as carbon have gone into the ocean. Policymakers, however, have to enact policies on land. And so they're not thinking about the ocean. They're not realizing that that ocean carbon sink may not always be there. That's the critical point we've been trying to raise.
So we're trying to make conclusions based on essentially half the data. That's what it's all about, right?
Well, that's exactly right. So the global climate models predict a gentle decline in the absorption of carbon by the ocean. But what they don't have a good grip on is what we call extreme events. So these unlikely but very high impact, high risk events, the collapse of the Antarctic ice sheet happening at the same time as a slowing of the Gulf Stream or a massive Arctic melt. If those things happen in concert, suddenly we have extreme events that could completely change ocean carbon absorption. And models, the big climate models, are not great at resolving those. It's partly because they don't have enough information that's fed into them.
So you are putting together an application for Canada First Research Excellence Fund, which is a large fund which is intended to put Canadian research and researchers on the global stage in terms of impact. Tell me why. What's so particular about Dalhousie that we are leading this multi-university effort?
Dalhousie has been Canada's preeminent ocean university for many years. Now more than ever, Dalhousie needs to take the lead nationally. One of the great things about Dalhousie is its long-term, consistent investment in building expertise in ocean research across the natural, applied, and social sciences, and also in building infrastructure, like new labs, for example, that can support ocean research. Dalhousie is the right place for this initiative.
Yeah. So, our latest Canada Research Chair is going to come into this lab. You have literally an army of researchers working on different areas related to this subject. Tell us a little bit more about what do they do and what they are going to do.
One of the things we are working with Dalhousie researchers right now is simply to envisage the scale of importance of this question and how we're going to narrow it down into the specific research pieces. It's obviously a big, broad proposal. We focused it on three major themes. The first theme is that ocean observation piece, so reducing uncertainty in what's happening in the ocean to inform our climate targets. It's kind of the science technical piece, data and observation. Once we are reducing uncertainty in the variability of the ocean, we can create a nice baseline for industries who are trying to use the ocean as a place to absorb carbon dioxide actively. It's called mitigation, so carbon dioxide removal. So our second theme is around using that increased resolution and understanding of the ocean to support the measurement, and also the policy development to support those industries to mitigation. And then the third theme, of course, has to step back and say, how do humans come into this whole question, and how can we support equitable and just adaptation? Dalhousie researchers are great at modeling. They're great at linking with ocean innovation, so new sensors, new ways of observing the ocean will also be important. And of course, they'll be at sea measuring what happens. And that means steel-toed boots and hard hats, students working long hours round the clock on ships to get the data we need to feed the models to get us to our climate targets. So we envisage a new scale of gathering data from the ocean, processing it, turning it into information that can be digested easily by the people who need it. So I think that's a critical part too that's different in this work than in many others, that we have a strong focus on data. That's going to be transformative going forward.
Now let's assume for a moment that you got this big investment from the government. Tell me, what difference is that going to make to the world? What difference is that going to make to me and my children? Tell us a little bit about the impact of this work.
So Deep, it would be transformative for Canada to undertake this research. There's a lot of discussion happening in global fora. We talked a lot about these climate issues at COP26, for example. There's a huge amount of interest in this sort of work. Canada stepping up into this space would mean a completely new profile for our ocean researchers. In this case, too, we're building a new collaboration with Quebec. And that also, I think, is going to be very important. So we have strong ocean research groups at Université Laval and also at Université de Québec en Rimouski. And building on the wonderful collaboration that we already have with Memorial University of Newfoundland, we now have 4 strong ocean universities working together, led by Dalhousie. We already outstrip most of the world's international institutions in terms of just our research output as a group. Once we start to actually work together and get those synergies and that passion, rev together, we will make a massive impact internationally.
Anya, I'm so pleased to hear about these inter-university collaborations that you talk about and the leadership that these universities will bring to the table. Now, within that, it's not just simply about scientific data. I know that you're working with people who are legal experts, people who are humanists, and so on. There are so many disciplines involved in all this research that it deals with the whole picture, not just simply the scientific side of it. I want to hear a bit more about that aspect of this endeavor.
You're quite right. What's important about this is that we're, of course, doing transformative work at that sort of ocean climate nexus, if you will. But the ocean climate nexus also involves people. People who live in communities that are near the ocean, who are impacted by climate change, Indigenous communities whose food security has been long-term impacted by climate change and will continue to be so. So we need to co-design the work we do with the people who are impacted by it. And this is the big challenge for the natural scientists, to understand and learn that working with people, working with communities is a different sort of work. So we need to bring in social scientists who know how to do this. And we need to work closely with community leaders and others to make sure that we do this correctly, that we co-design our work to bring the best benefit to Canadians.
Anya, this is fascinating. And what makes it even more fascinating, I understand that there is already a lot of international support for this. Tell me more about that.
We're very lucky, Deep, because we're already in intense discussion with our international colleagues on how this might play out in the international research community. We have support from NASA. We have support from Geomar in Germany. We're working with colleagues in the UK. There has been just a surge of support internationally for this proposal, and we have a number of colleagues internationally crossing their fingers that we're successful.
Anya, this is fascinating, and I'm so pleased that you're approaching it from so many different angles. This is a major effort, and the rewards of it would also be major. I want to wish you all the best and great success in doing this work, not just simply in getting the grant, but the real thing starts after that. And
Indeed.
The impact that this could have, not just on our research, not just on the research of the collaborators not just on Canada, but on the whole world, and most importantly, on everything living on this planet. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Saini, and this has been The Deep Dive.